Hola. Bom dia. Bacalhau. Pastel de nata. And that's all I can manage in Portuguese, so I'm very sorry, I will switch to English. Thanks to be here. Let's talk about OpenTelemetry tracing. I'm Nicolas Frankel. For a long time, I was a software engineer working on different projects. Then I had a break of 7 years doing developer advocacy, and since July, I'm back to software engineering. So you might notice my gray hair. You are young, but you already have gray hair, although you are young. No, it's a trick of the light. It's in the head. And when I was younger, we didn't talk about observability. What we talked about was about monitoring. And what was monitoring at the time? There were a bunch of people like you sitting in front of screens and checking dashboards. And if something bad happened, if the dashboard didn't look good, then they would log into the machine and start to fix things. That was alerting, right? That was very modern alerting. And of course, doesn't work like this anymore. And the only reason is because the system are not monolithic, like really monolithic, but they are becoming more and more distributed. So even if you are not using microservices, and probably you shouldn't, then there is no denying that the applications, the software, the systems are becoming more and more distributed. And for that, we came with a new term called observability. And the idea of observability, as you mentioned, this is like a Wikipedia definition. They mention distributed system, which is good. And they tell you that it's the way to give you an oversight of a running system. And they mention, funnily enough, logging and tracing. And I love Wikipedia definitions. In this talk, I will have two, and both of them are not great for once, because they mention logging, tracing, and they forget metrics, which is the third pillar of observability, of the first, depending on how you see it, because it's what those engineers watch on their dashboard. They watch metrics. The talk is mainly about tracing, but I will briefly mention metrics, and I have a couple of slides on logging, because I think it's still important. So metrics, who here doesn't do metrics at all? They don't have dashboards, they're just, everybody does. That's normal. What I would advise you is, the business doesn't care one bit about how much this disk storage, what the percentage of this storage, I have a problem. Disk storage, they don't care about it. Huh? So if you want to secure a budget, you should probably give them higher level metrics. The number of orders in the last 10 minutes, the number of 404, this kind of stuff. Give them that, use the same infrastructure, you will get money. Logging is a bit more complex. Actually, at once, I had a talk entirely dedicated to logging. The first thing is what to log. When I was a young engineer, I thought I was super smart, and I noticed that my colleagues, they didn't log as good as me. I was the best logger ever, right? And I thought, it's really hard to make people who don't want to log or who don't care about logging because they don't understand what's the benefit, to make them log correctly. So I will be smart. I will create a Java agent. So who here works in the JVM ecosystem? Okay, let's say fourth of the room. On this side, nobody works in the JVM. There is segregation already. And I thought, okay, I will create a Java agent, and the idea of Java agent, it changes the codes that you load at runtime. So I will use a Java agent to log input parameters of a method and return value. And I thought that was very smart. And then whether you wanted to log or not, whether you really logged or not, then I will get the logs nonetheless. And then I understood that there is some sensitive data sometimes, and that was not such a great idea. And so getting back to the matter at hand, how do you manage to make developers create log statements? Well, you have probably code reviews. You focus on the design pattern, on the code, and whatever. This should be part of the code review. One item of the code review is, okay, is your piece of code correctly logging what it's doing? If something gets wrong, do we get enough information when we check the log in production? The logging format is also interesting. I mentioned when something got wrong in the past, the people, they logged into the machine, they read the logs, and then they tried to fix what was happening. Like reading the logs was enough to understand what was happening. Yes, it worked if you log into the machine that created the log, and there is one single machine. But now your systems are distributed, so multiple machines are contributing to a business request. And which machine do you log into? You have no clue. Even worse, the machine that created the logs might be long gone because you are using containers. So it's not possible to actually do that. So the idea that the log is meant for you as a human being reading the log file is gone. What most organizations are doing, and I hope you do, is you pull or you push your logs into a centralized logging system, and then you've got everything in one place, coming from different components. But it means that what comes in is probably somehow parsed to be presentable, to be structured. And so if you have unstructured log made for human coming into your system, then you lose time parsing it. There is a chance that the parsing fails because something changed, and you're wasting resources. Why don't you create JSON logs directly? Who here is creating JSON logs directly? Okay, good, 5, 6 hands. Tomorrow morning, during your Scrum, or however you call it, your Scrum meeting, you just say, why don't we use JSON logs? Why? Ask the question. Don't say, we must use JSON log because somebody told us to do that. Just ask the question, like, why? And you will see, like, perhaps it will open some new ideas. Where to log is also very interesting. It also changed. When I was a young engineer, I was told never, ever to log on the console because it's bad, because we need to have files, and then we need to have rolling files, right? Now you are using containers. Where do you log? As an architect, you also need to decide whether to get the log, to scrape from the outside system to the app, or for the app to push the log. Both have pros and cons. How long do you need to store the log? If you are working on Candy Crush, it's not the same if you are working for a bank and for auditing purposes. And then you need for your backend to search and to display the log. So there are multiple tools to do that. Here are a couple of them. I'm most familiar with Elastic, but more or less they are all equal. Now comes tracing, or I should say distributed tracing. Again, Wikipedia definition, blah, 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 blah. The use of logging to record information. I hate this definition. So I came up with my own, because, hey, right? And the idea is it's a set of technique to follow a business request across your information system, which, like, in my opinion, like, catch the gist of it. And we already had tracing pioneers in the past. Who here is already using distributed tracing, by the way? Oh, very good. More people are using distributed tracing than JSON logging. That's interesting. No, it's really interesting. And so we already had Zipkin and Jaeger and OpenTracing, and it worked with one caveat. And the thing is, they all had a proprietary way of doing that. Meaning that as an architect, if my company chooses to use Zipkin, now I can only use library or SDKs or tool that can actually produce Zipkin compatible trace formats. It reduces my choice regarding components. So I have one additional requirement, it must be Zipkin compatible. In this case, in general, somebody comes with a new standard, with a regular standard. And not the XKCD standard saying, oh, we have 14 standards, we will create one standard to bind them all, and now you have 15 standards, but a real standard. It only works if you have a strong governing body that is able to say, this is how we do things, and with the backing of players. And this is what the W3C did using the trace context specification. They actually wrote a standard how you should trace things. It's 20, 25 pages, quite easy to read, and it describes how you can pass information through an HTTP header so that the next component in the HTTP chain can belong to the same trace. Who has read the specification? No hands. Who knows about the specification? No hands either. Oh, interesting. I encourage you to have a look at it. It's quite easy to read, but basically it defines two important things. It defines the idea of a trace. So the trace is a single business request that goes through your components. And it defines the idea of a span, which is something happening inside of a component throughout the course of this business request. A span belongs, of course, to a trace. Multiple spans can belong to the same component because the component did multiple things that you want to observe. And all in all, they are bound into a parent-child relationship. So here you have a single trace that goes across three components. And inside each component, there is one single span. And Y has X as a parent, Z has X as a parent, X has no parent because it's the first span, right? And already you can see that they start at the same time, so probably something is happening in parallel. So it gives you insight into your systems. Now comes OpenTelemetry. You, as developer, if I give you the set of specification of this trace context specification, you can implement it. It's no fun. Basically, it consists of reading the HTTP header, extracting out of the header the trace ID, the span ID, and a couple of flags. And then you create a new span ID, and you attach it to the trace ID, and you propagate it to the next call. Who here is a lazy developer? Yeah. Who here is not a lazy developer? There is a gap. Okay, I'm super lazy, and I want libraries to take care of stupid stuff for me, especially when it's repetitive and boring. Comes OpenTelemetry. OpenTelemetry comes with libraries and SDKs and tools to handle everything related to observability, not only about tracing, but about metrics, logging, and tracing. And the good thing is it implements the W3C trace context. It's a merge of OpenTracing and OpenCensus. OpenTracing, remember, with the Zipkin and Jaeger. So OpenTracing doesn't exist anymore. If you are using OpenTracing, you should migrate as soon as possible. Probably nobody uses OpenTracing anymore. It's a CNCF project. It has a nice open source license, and it has a lot of followers of GitHub. I tend to describe OpenTelemetry as a black hole because every actor now is attracted. Like if you are an actor in the observability space and you are not compatible with OpenTelemetry, you close shop tomorrow. It's not possible. Everybody wants OpenTelemetry related stuff. How does it work? Well, you have sources of OpenTelemetry, like it can be your application, it can be your infrastructure, it can be even client, although I don't really advertise for it. And you have an OpenTelemetry collector. So OpenTelemetry provides something called an OpenTelemetry collector, where you can push your OpenTelemetry data in OpenTelemetry format. That's the most important, is OpenTelemetry format. Nothing requires you to use the OpenTelemetry collector yourself. However, it's a good practice. Why? Because the OpenTelemetry collector allows you to filter, to aggregate, or to create data out of existing data, and then to push it further. You can think about it as a proxy. You can also enrich data, whatever. So although it's possible to directly push into your back-end observability, then it's a good practice to have the OpenTelemetry collector. You can perfectly use Jaeger and push your data directly through Jaeger, for example, or to Zipkin. But again, it's advised to have an OpenTelemetry collector. However, imagine you want to push it, it's very easy. The idea is that Jaeger and Zipkin are now compatible with OpenTelemetry, meaning that once, if you already are using one of them, you can decide, instead of sending their proprietary kind of data to push OpenTelemetry data, you just open the ports on Jaeger or Zipkin, and it changes nothing in your infrastructure. And once you are in this super nice place, well, it's easy to replace when with the other, introduce the OpenTelemetry collector, or do whatever you want. Now you are fully OpenTelemetry compatible. I've talked a lot about the general idea, but the talk was called for developers. So I will talk to developers, even the non-lazy one. You have two approaches, and the approach depends on your stack. If you have a runtime, meaning you are using JavaScript because you have Node.js, or Python because you have the Python runtime, or Java because you have the JVM, or .NET, or other things which provide a runtime, you can use zero-code instrumentation. As the name implies, zero-code instrumentation is for lazy developer because you don't code. What you really will do is, like the Java agent I mentioned before, you will run your stuff, and with the help of something at runtime, it will change the code to do what you want. This is very good, meaning you don't change. Your developers, they don't even need to know about OpenTelemetry. So if you are a DevOps or a regular ops, because that's how you are called now, ops are called DevOps, even they don't do dev, like you just add the agent or the library when you actually run the application, and it provides you OpenTelemetry data. Kubernetes also allows you to do that. If you want more detail, or if it's not exactly what you want, or if you have no runtime because you are using Rust or Go, then at this point you need to have manual instrumentation. And manual instrumentation is manual. And you need to embed the library, to declare it, to use the API or the annotation. My advice is use zero-code instrumentation first, because it's easier, it's much less expensive. Actually, it costs nothing. So you can have an OpenTelemetry collector plus Jaeger, or just Jaeger directly. You tell nobody, you send OpenTelemetry data to Jaeger. Then when a bug happens, you use it to debug, and then you tell to your boss, look, now I need to have budget for a proper project. Instead of start asking for money. Bosses don't like it, strangely enough, especially if you can't provide anything tangible. So just start with zero-code instrumentation. And now it's time for a demo, because I've talked a lot. So I will start easily. Oh no, I have more before I show you, because I need to explain to you my demo. I was too fast. My demo will be the following. It's a simple demo, right? I've been a developer advocate. All people bitch that generally developer advocate do hello world demos. So I said, okay, I will try to be a bit bit better. This is supposed to model an e-commerce shop, and especially the homepage, or at least a page. So you have the request that comes, and you ask for a product. It goes through the API gateway, and then the API gateway forwards it to the catalog. The catalog has the information about the product itself. It's a Spring Boot Kotlin application. I love Kotlin. Who here is a Kotlin developer on the back end? Very good. Love you. Next year, I want more. But then it will ask for additional data because, for example, it will ask about the price. And the price is on the Flask Python application. And because the price, this is a Python application, and Python is not known for its speed, I will cache the result into Valky, which is the one of the fork of Redis. Then it will ask for the inventory because we don't want to display items that are not available, and we have warehouses all over the world. So one of the warehouses is also in Spring Kotlin, but this time I'm using GraalVM, so I will compile it to native code. I can't use agents anymore. One is in Go because, well, everybody does Go, even though I hate it. It will also ask a component in Japan, which is in Ruby in Sinatra, and I have one in Quarkus and regular Java. All of them will store their information in a Postgres database in different schemas of the same instance. And then I will have another Python application which will recommend me additional items. And this one uses Python and FastAPI, but this one I will instrument for Kubernetes because I will run everything in Kubernetes. So this will be like pure zero-code instrumentation. I did this talk like for a long time. It's already 2 years that I'm doing this talk, and every time I try to add more stuff. And at the beginning, people ask me, hey, you were talking about HTTP headers, that's cool, but how do you do it with asynchronous messaging? Because then you have no HTTP header, right? And I say, oh, it's easy. You just take the HTTP header, you pass it as metadata in the message, and you do the opposite on the... And at some point I said, okay, instead of just blah, 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 I will show it. So that's what I will be doing. Here, I publish a message in an MQTT queue, and on the other side, I have an Node.js TypeScript component that reads it, and then everything is part of the same trace. Looks cool? Yeah. And then this is my infrastructure, so I have 2 namespaces. I will have one apps namespace where I put everything that is like business related. I have one collector in this namespace, and on the infrastructure namespace, I have traffic, which is my proxy, my HTTP proxy. And I also have one collector, and I have Jaeger. And both collectors will actually push to Jaeger. Shall I start? So now let's pray the demo gods. So because I'm super lazy, I've created a README, and I will just stupidly copy-paste. So just checking that I have nothing running, right? I have no pods, just the regular containers. So it does its magic. And here I'm deploying the Helm charts with the apps. And I do the same. And of course, at some point, I forgot to do something very stupid, which is to get back to the first commit, which is the reason why it doesn't work. So I do it again. And now it works. And now you can see the pods being created. So the recommendation and warehouses, some of them, they need a connection to the Postgres database. Postgres was not ready when they started. Kubernetes killed them, and they restarted. And now everything is good. You can see the recommendation log saying blah, blah, blah. Here, and warehouse, this one, now it couldn't connect, and now it's connected, right? Yes, some of the components, they eagerly connect to the Postgres database. Some, they just do it lazily when they are requested. Anyway. And I will clear it, and I will do my curl. Okay. Funny. Curl. Curl. Good. Control or curl. funny. I'm always set at the end. Well, funny, not funny. Okay. And let's see the results. Here you are. Single business transaction across all components, at least some of them. So you can see at the top, you see the infrastructure, you see traffic, which is the API gateway that I'm using. Then you can start to see business component, the catalog, and then you can see the inventory, pushing requests to the stocks, and then to the pricing. So now I need to ask you, because I have so many components and I can't explain them all to you. I saw there were like 6 or 7 Java developers, Python developers here. None? Wow, that's amazing. PHP? Sorry, I don't have PHP. PHP, what are you coding in, guys? Sorry? Python. Why didn't you raise your hand? Don't be sorry. It's fine. So you still are only, you are the single one, but still, only one. There can be only one. It's like Highlander. You are the winner, by the way. What are you coding in? Kotlin, Java? Kotlin. Oh, who said Scala? Come on, it's 2025. Okay. Java and Kotlin, raise your hand. Ah, wow, amazing. Okay, I will show you Java, and I have Rust. Who is a Rust developer? No. Oh yeah, me as well, but still I can show it to you. I think Python will win even though you are all alone. Who said go? We need to talk afterwards. I know a good psychiatrist, really, very good. He did wonders for me. We can work on that addiction. Rust for the win, Rust. Repeat after me, Rust. And in your mouth, it's so much Rust. It sounds much better, like go where? Okay, I will show you the most amazing things in the world, which is the catalog. So I told you, start with zero-code instrumentation. And here, this is a regular, I also hate Gradle. I'm a Maven guy. I can't be seen that I'm old because I prefer Maven, but still, I've written an article on why I prefer Maven. Anyway, and you can check here, I have regular application, and there are no OpenTelemetry dependencies, none of them. So where does the magic happens? At runtime, I told you, hey, I add an agent. Here I'm using containers. So what I'm doing is when I build the container, so this is a regular 2-stage build. The first one, I use a JDK to compile and to package into a jar. And the second step, I'm like copying the jar, but I'm also copying an agent, the OpenTelemetry Java agent. And when I run the stuff, I run it with the agent. If you are not using container, you would use this in your command line to actually run the stuff. I'm using container, I'm doing this. So it's not bad. And on the Python side, good sir, you are privileged, I do the exact same stuff. So if I look at the TOML file, no dependency on anything, right? On anything OpenTelemetry related. But in the Docker file, and because Python is by definition not compiled, it has a runtime, I actually install my dependency and I add during the build the OpenTelemetry dependency. So the developers, they don't need to see that, right? The developers, they just send you the code and the TOML file. And when you create your image, you do that. And also something that it allows, this line, is here I install every dependency that I declare in the TOML and the transitive dependency and the transitive dependency or the transitive dependency, all the three. Here, it will sniff everything that is available to check if there is an OpenTelemetry related library to one of the library I installed. And for this reason, because let's say, no, it's the case, I install something related to Postgres, because I'm using Postgres, then when I get the pricing, it instruments the calls to the database. You can see the exact, well, you can't see because it's a bit small and the screen is like very interesting screen. So let's try to make it bigger for you. Do you see better? Yeah. First rule of the conference, always on the first row. It's opposite to school, right? And there is no heater in the back anyway. Here you see the exact query, the exact SQL query that is executed. Guess what? It's the exact same thing in Java, but through the agents. So here on Python, I'm using a command line when I'm building the container. On the Java side, I can show you the catalog, and here you can see the exact query. And you can see that I'm very bad because I'm using star, which is shouldn't do, but it works. Well, I'm lazy, right? It's just a demo. And this is it. So with just those two tricks, Java agents, some Python change when I create the image, and an OpenTelemetry backend, in this case Jaeger, I already got this. It's the most cheap thing that you can get, the cheapest, sorry. So we can do better, right? Imagine we want to have additional data related to Kubernetes, because so far we have like OS and library name and a couple of things, but we want to have things related to Kubernetes. So I will go here, I will add the Kubernetes instrumentation, and normally I should like upgrade my, it's the apps, it's good. No, don't do that to me. No. It worked yesterday. It worked on my machine. Yeah. Okay, key blah, blah, blah must equal apps, current value is infra. There is an ingress somewhere that is like doing bad stuff, so I will cube ctl get ingress, and I will say all namespaces, and the catalog, it's very bad here. I probably forgot to remove it, so I will delete this ingress. I will delete ingress and infra, and it's called catalog. And if I do it again, I have an issue now. Unable to continue with update, cluster collector, namespace exit, cluster role collector. That's a bit sad. I kid you not, that was not expected, and it can really create a mess in my demo now. Okay, let's do delete ingress and apps pricing. Let's delete everything, and in infra, let's delete everything. Okay, I have none of them. So get ingress. Never update your demo the day before. Never. It's a very, very bad idea. And now I'm all stressed. You don't see it, but I'm sweating because I look like an idiot, right? Yeah. Okay, let's check. I'm here, Kubernetes instrumentation, catalog. I should check the ingress. search, select find in files, ingress, trafficking ingress catalog, and it's definitely in the release namespace. So what's happening? Oops. Let's do something crazy. Let's do like this. I will check out this revision. I will remove the instrumenter. This is on the fly fix. You shouldn't do this. Believe me, you shouldn't. And I'm not even sure it works if I do like this. So if I delete this one, and oh God. And if I say here catalog, no, apps, okay, infra. Which one is it? Collector. Cluster role collector exists and cannot be invalid on a... Tinitsa? You can watch that it worked yesterday, right? Where is my collector? So now I need to check the charts and the values.yaml. This is infra. Guys, please help me. I need help. Sorry? No! That's not help. The apps here, the infra is here, values.yaml. Overrides, this one. Collector here. Ask IntelliJ, yeah, that's what I did yesterday, but it worked. Cube, ctl, delete, and infra collector. Okay. Right. It's called deployments, and it's collector. Okay, and I do the same in apps. And let's try it again. Okay. Let's focus on the code then. So if had worked, I told you, like, I want by default to start from something very simple, like zero code instrumentation, but then perhaps you want to have additional spans inside, because the default spans, they might not be that interesting to you, right? Here I have a couple of them, products, find by ID, get, okay. So imagine I want to have additional span inside my codes because I want to have additional detail. So on the Java side, on the Kotlin side, on the JVM side, what you can do is actually you start annotating your code. And to do that, you need to add an additional dependency. Now you are involving the developers, which is this OpenTelemetry instrumentation annotation. And now on my code, I can use those annotations. And for example, here, I can use the annotation to have additional spans. So you just add with span, when you go through this method, you will have this additional span. By default, the name of the span, the name that appears like here, product repository, find my ID, is the unqualified name of the class. So the class simple name without the whole package, plus the method name. So if I go through this, I will see product handler.products, right? But you might want to say, okay, perhaps the name is not what I want. I want to have a dedicated name. Perhaps it's too long or whatever. And so you can override the default name. Here, I won't see fetch product detail. I will just see fetch. Also, I mentioned that you could actually get additional data. For example, here I've got the DB statement. You also have the DB name, DB operation, whatever. You might want to have additional data, business data, not only technical. For example, imagine there is a bug between the product that you require and the price of the product. And like in production, customer will call you like this t-shirt, it can't cost 200 euros. It's not possible. Well, I mean, in a sane world, probably nowadays the t-shirts can cost 200 euros, but in a regular world, it would be very weird. So they call you, it's not possible. And you want to check that it actually is the case, that the product ID on the catalog side is the same as the product ID on the pricing side. So you will introduce these span attributes. So I'm adding an additional parameter to the method, which is the product ID. But the product ID, I already passed the product. Unfortunately, I pass it as a whole object, and I just can only add with annotation like regular primitive types. So here I add it as a long, right? When I call this, I need to call it with my product and its ID. So on the code side, it's not as good, but here I will actually get the product ID as an additional attribute in my span. And I can do the same thing in Python. You also have annotations. So here, again, I will add this additional dependency as well in Python. And my codes, I can use annotations. So here I will say, okay, this is the query that I want to see. I directly want to see the query not as an attribute, but as the main name. But the annotation itself doesn't allow me actually to add an attribute. So the next step, I want to have the full-fledged power of the API. Not only annotations, but I want to be able to use the API. So I will go on my last stage. On the catalog side, I now have not only the annotations, but I have the API itself. On Python, the separation is not clear-cut. I could have used the API before, but I chose not to, just to show annotations. So I keep the same. And now in this last stage, I also want to use the power of the API to actually extract the HTTP header and to set it as metadata when I send the message, and so that it becomes part of the same trace. So on the catalog, I have a new things appearing called analytics, and basically it's a filter, right? So if you are using the JVM, it's a filter. And here I will actually do the magic. So I will, because now I have the API, I will use it to create the trace and the span. Where do you get this hotel stuff? Here. This is very easy. Once I get the API, I've got this. global OpenTelemetry.get, and then it gets you the right instance. And then afterwards, I can create the tracer with the right name, and I will filter it. From the tracer, I create the builder. Very important, now I'm doing everything by my hands. So I need to actually say, okay, please use this span as your parent span. Okay, which I didn't do. Everything I've done before was, okay, it works a lot, it's not exactly what I want. Now I have full power, I'm responsible to do what I'm doing. So I say, set the parent of this new span as the current context and start the span immediately. Okay? And here I create the message holder. Oops. So remember that here I'm using MQTT. And so you have two choices. Either you are on a new version of MQTT and it accepts metadata, or you have an old version and there is no metadata. In this case, if you have no metadata, then the technical HTTP header, which isn't HTTP anymore, then you pass it as the regular payload. It's less clean, then it mixes business and technical stuff, but you have no choice. Here I'm using a new version. So what I'm doing is, and this is the only time when actually you need to actually read the trace context specification. I'm recreating a trace context, the HTTP header, right, called trace parent in the specification, bit by bit. I take the trace ID, I take the span ID, and I have additional flags. And I pass it here as metadata in my MQTT message. So when I publish the message, the metadata header, not HTTP anymore, is passed along. So here I started the span, and here I end the span. On the other side, it's Node.js. Well, Node.js, I will do everything with the API. I subscribe to the topic. I parse the JSON. It gives me the data. I parse the metadata. And then out of the metadata, I extract the active context with the user properties. And now with this, the analytics, which is asynchronous, becomes part of the trace because it creates an additional span. I start the span here, I end the span here, because I don't call anything further. So it's just a very small span, but still you will see it in the trace. And so because it obviously doesn't work anymore, I can show you this, where I smartly added this one. And I don't know if you can see it, but you see these analytics here. No, you can't see it, it's too small. Perhaps if I do this. Here you have the analytics components, and it becomes, again, very small. It becomes part of the trace. It might not be a great idea if your message sits there for minutes or hours, because then everything that is synchronous will be stuck on one side, and then it will have minutes or hours, and then a single span. But if you have the right front end, then perhaps you can zoom on what is interesting to you or not. It really depends on what you are using. You can filter, you can whatever. But it's now possible. So basically, everything that was done magically through zero-code instrumentation, then you can use the power of the API to do it explicitly and to have full power over what is. How long do I have? It's end. Okay, then sorry for the failing demo. It happens sometimes. I wish you bon appetit, bon appetito.
Yes.
Whatever. I wish you to enjoy your lunch. and have a good rest of the conference. Thanks a lot.